G'day, I'm Mark from Self-Sufficient Me, and today is a beautiful overcast day in sunny southeast Queensland, subtropical climate, so you'll take any relief from the heat you can in this type of weather, I can tell you. And today I'm harvesting some of these Rosella calyxes. Well, it's sort of like the fruit. The calyx in the Rosella plant surrounds a seed pod, and in that seed pod has probably about a dozen or so small or medium-sized diamond-shaped or pyramid-shaped seeds. And so it's like thick petals, and that's the thing that we're interested in today. We harvest that and you can make the most fabulous jam out of it. It's a famous jam here in Australia, but the plant itself is a member of the hibiscus family, and it's actually from Africa. The whole plant is edible. It can be made into a drink, teas, cordial, leaves can be eaten. So it's a fairly versatile plant to grow in the garden, although you don't often hear about it being grown so much. But it could be grown in any vegetable patch really. It is an annual. It's fairly long lasting. It's got about a 6-month growing period. And typically, depending on the variety, it'll flower nice pink flowers, and then it'll form the calyxes, and it won't be terrific the first harvest, and then the second harvest should be quite a lot more, getting towards the end of autumn into winter, and then the plant will die back and reharvest the seeds and plant them again. So anyway, let's get into it. I'll harvest these calyxes, we'll make them into jam, and I'll show you the whole process. So that's the harvest done. You can see it's quite a big harvest of Rosella calyxes. It's going to make a good lot of jam. I like to harvest the Rosella calyx here when they're still a bit plump. You don't want to harvest them when they're dry and shriveled up, because you want the plumpness and the juiciness to make good jam out of them. Whilst I'm harvesting, you can see I gave the plants a good prune back. The hope is that it will regenerate before the end of summer, and that new growth will produce more calyxes or more flowers, and then more calyxes. And then before winter, hopefully we can get another harvest out of these 4 or 5 plants. The next step is to wash these, because inside these you often get, because they're not completely encircled like say a fruit is, you often get little critters or insects. So a good wash before taking into the kitchen and processing is a good idea.
So what I like to do is give them a good rinse off. I use a bucket and give them a good dunk first of all, and then I throw them on my onion drying rack made from a couple of old saw stands, and once they're sprayed off and I'm satisfied there's nothing in them, I'll then put them in a big pot. And in this case, because there's so many, I'm not going to get rid of the seed pods, but what you can do if you've just got a few, or if you prefer to, you can remove the seed pod by ripping all the petals off like that, and then discarding the seed pod. Or you can use an apple corer, which is a much easier way, put it in the base of the calyx, give it a bit of a twist, and you'll get the seed pod out like that. Pop it out, and then you've got the whole calyx that you can then simmer down in the pot without having to put up with the seeds. In this case, I'm going to simmer them with the seeds in there. I use about a litre or two of water. It doesn't really matter so much, just as long as you've got a bit of water in there to get the simmering process going, and then you just watch it break down. This point's probably about 3/4 of an hour. It's starting to break down. You might need to add a little bit of extra water to it, just so that it doesn't go really thick, because what you want to do is break it right down. And then you get to a point where the seed pods are starting to go translucent, or if you haven't got the seed pods in there because you've removed them earlier, well then you're just getting to a point where it's really broken down. I used a chip strainer to get rid of the seed pods out of mine, and then you get it to that type of consistency, and then you strain it through a strainer. I use a medium-sized sieve, but you can use one with bigger holes if you want a more chunkier type of jam. I like a smoother type jelly jam for my Rosella jam, and all that seed pods and discarded pulp, I then whack it all in our composter, and then that'll go down to the compost heap. Then you're left with this beautiful sauce, a nice smooth sauce, and what you do with that is you weigh the sauce, and then you add an equal amount of sugar back into the pot, stir it all back in, mix it up together, put it on a simmer. At the same time, you might want to sterilize your jars while you're getting ready to bottle. You're going to get some froth in this type of jam. Generally, if it's not dirty froth, like if it's not brown, it's nice colour, I keep that because it's really good on ice cream. You can get quite a bit of froth, and you just keep simmering it down until you're happy with the thickness of it. I put it on a cold plate, leave it for 2 minutes, and then if it doesn't run real fast and that gap stays for a while, you know she's at good setting point. Then I bottle them. Be pretty careful because it's hot at this point. And leave those jars to rest on the bench overnight. If you open a jar, well then I refrigerate, otherwise they can be just stored in the pantry. And that's pretty well it.
And that's how you make Rosella jam. Now I know it looks a little finicky, but let me assure you, making Rosella jam is no harder than making any other preserve, like a marmalade or a plum jam or a jelly or whatever. I've got some here to sample. I've already eaten one piece. I couldn't help myself, sorry. But let's have a taste. You know what I love about Rosella jam? It's that tartness. It's very unique, a very unique tasting jam, and that's what wins so many jam contests, especially with the Country Women's Association. They are real experts at making jams in Australia, and this is one of their favourites. That unique flavour sets it apart from all other types of jams and jellies. This goes good with cheese, it goes good with meats, goes good with lots of things because of that tartness. I just love it. I think it's about a cross between like rhubarb and a plum is probably the best way to describe it, in my opinion anyway. So that's Rosella jam. It's a beautiful thing to grow. It looks great. It's very ornamental in the garden, and as I said, it makes the most fantastic jam you'll ever taste. Get into growing Rosellas and make the jam from it, or a tea or a cordial or whatever you want. You can see the recipe on my website. I wrote it a few years ago, the way I do it. An article, just type it in the search engine there on selfsufficientme.com. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye for now.